Okay, welcome everyone for today's Dao De Jing, and then we are going to continue from last year, I believe. Okay, we finished on the chapter 13, and we are going to continue on chapter 14, 15, 16, and then we will take probably 1 or 2 months break. And don't forget, we will continue, and for sure we will continue. Okay, so let's start. Okay, let me, as usual, okay, let's start from reading your favorite translation, and then Amang and I will share the our translation, and then we will discuss chapter by chapter. Let's start. Chapter 14. I believe Kwang want to read, right?
Absolutely. Do we start now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so stanza 14, translation by Professor Most Roberts. Something looked for but not seen, or listened for, not heard, or reached for, not found. Call one dim, one faint, one slight. Not for summons or for challenge. Combines these three make one. The one, the foremost number. When daylit sky and dark of night have yet to be. Through this one, all living forms coin forth, henter scanter, how else to name it? Only to go round home again to their unbody state. Form before form, guises of the unbody, or glimpse in the dim void. Who can engage them? Who find the foremost? Who can pursue them? Who find the last? Hold fast to the way of ancient days, to guide us through our present world, to know how things began of old, is to be grounded in the way.
Thank you, Kwang. Anyone want to read another version of translation? Oh,
So
it's a
14,
surprise.
right?
Yeah.
14, right?
Yeah, 14.
This is Ursula Le Guin. Look at it. Nothing to see. Call it colorless. Listen to it. Nothing to hear. Call it soundless. Reach for it. Nothing to hold. Call it intangible. Triply undifferentiated, it merges into oneness. Not bright above, not dark below. Never, oh never can it be named. It reverts. It returns to unbeing. Call it the form of the unformed, the image of no image. Call it unthinkable thought. Face it, no face. Follow it, no end. Holding fast to the old way, we can live in the present, mindful of the ancient beginnings. We hold the thread of the Tao.
Thank you, Sharon Khan. Okay, so let me share my screen and then, okay, I hope you can see it. Among you want to read.
Chapter 14, The Law of the Tao. What can be seen but appears as nothing is called plain. What can be listened to but cannot be heard is called sparse. What can be reached but cannot be held is called minuscule. These three cannot be further investigated, so we must mix them into one. Its upper part is not bright, its lower part is not dim. It is unceasing and unnameable. It returns to nothingness. We call it a state of statelessness, an image of nothingness. This is called vagueness. We cannot see its head front when we confront it, nor can we see its back when we follow it. Holding the Tao of the ancient to harness the being reality of today, to know the ancient beginning of the Tao, is to know the law of the Tao.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so here, the Chinese word called Dao Ji. Okay, and it's difficult to translate, and I decided to translate as the law. Okay, because Ji, this one, I think it's when Shu can read this, the translator translates as a threat. That's its original meaning. But I think here it means the law, the discipline. Okay. So I think this one is, when I read this one, it reminds me about the Parmenides on nature. It talking about what's the being, what's the origin of the universe, what's the reality of the universe. So three things: 以息为, okay, plan. Okay, I translate first one. It can be seen, it's visible, but you see nothing. I think the imagination. This word means when you look at a plan, right? It's a great plan, okay, and you don't see anything, but actually there's something, because there's no mountain, no tree, it's just the vast land. I think that's what it means, okay. And the same thing, when you hear something but you cannot really hear, okay, you call xi, that means sparse. And then something you can touch but you cannot hold it. Okay, they call wei. Okay, so this one is deal with your vision, your audible, and something tangible. Okay, but it's a kind of like vague, and that's why this one is, you can say it's mystical, but I think it's, at least when I read it, I feel very similar to Parmenides writing on nature, talk about the nature is a sphere, it's one thing. Everything you see is it's an illusion. Okay, this kind of feeling. And then what else I want to talk about? Here it talking about okay, here we mix them into one. I think the three cannot be further investigated, so we mix them into one. So these three, even your vision, your hearing, your tactical, even is three different senses, but the three senses is also indistinguishable. Okay, so I think that's the author tried to describe the origin or the reality of the universe. I think that's the purpose of this chapter. Okay, and the author tried to say this kind of reality is the law. Okay, from the ancient time until today, and also implied till the future. Okay, that's all I need to say. And Aman, please.
What a heck of a way to return to the Tao. This chapter drops you into what I would say is the metaphysic of the Tao, what my former thesis advisor and scholar of Taoism would say: there is no metaphysics in Taoism, because he was very pedantic. Metaphysics means after the physical law that you see in front of you. And the Tao doesn't ascribe to an after what you see. What you see is what there is. Here, it's telling you, you can actually observe it, but you can't exactly grasp it. It can be seen, but it appears as nothing. It can be heard, or listened to, but it can't be really heard. It can be reached for, but it can't be held. All of these are to say, it is here now. It is around us. But when you're going to try and grasp for it, it's like trying to hold your own shadow. It's just elusive. It's ephemeral, almost beyond words. But here are the words that help us describe it. And what are those words? They're paradoxical. The Tao is paradoxical because it appears as nothing, yet through it everything is done. It is in the most infinitesimal, minuscule occurrence, but it's also at a cosmological level what keeps the whole clock turning. And this idea that there's three aspects that of the senses that it calls for: your sight, your hearing, your touch, and that these, almost in order of sense experience, are how we epistemologically understand the world around us. We see things, that is real. Second to that, we hear them. When we see and hear together, we put that down as real. If we see but we can't hear, it's a phantasm, it's a vagary, it's smoke and mirrors. And if we can see and hear and touch, it's absolutely real. We can't reduce beyond that. They don't touch on scent or taste, obviously, which is kind of interesting, could be investigated in itself. But those three form the fundamental foundations for how we engage with the world around us in the here and now. And they can't be reduced beyond that. And so instead of further reduction, combine, take these senses together, and what do you get? You get the experience of watching the daylight ebb and increase. You get to watch plants wither and rebloom. You get to watch the Tao in action around you day in, day out. So it says, holding the Tao of the ancient, to harness the being of reality today, to hold what is ancient, what is today, 10,000, 500,000 years ago, our ancestors still witnessed these very basic phenomena, however they understood them. And to know that is to know the Zhi Dao, the law of the Tao, the era of the Tao, the order of the Tao, the epoch of the Tao. That word, as Jason pointed out, Ji, is very elusive. I do like the idea of translating it as the law. Even though Fa is usually what we associate with law, here it does have sort of a law in the sense of like Newtonian law. It is indefinite. It is inevitable. It is eternal. It will last longer than you. So yeah, this is a wading right back into the deep end of the Tao Te Ching, where it really tries to point you towards the thing it says right in the beginning, which is you can't describe the Tao, but you can get close. And this is an attempt to get really close.
Thank you, Amam. Okay, so hold on. Okay, thank you, Amam. Okay, so let's have a brief discussion, or if you have any question, comment, please raise your hand. We have Shen Kang and Kwang, please.
So again, I think this is a beautiful verse to restart this, to kind of revisit. Again, I think it captures, the heart of the Tao. My favorite part here is that triply undifferentiated, it merges into oneness. Whenever we use our senses, we see only the 10,000 things, because it is those 10,000 things that present themselves to us through the senses. But Tao is something that is behind all the 10,000 things. It is the thing that is shaping those 10,000 things, and you can't see it directly, but triply undifferentiated, it merges into oneness. So it is behind everything, but if you try to look at it, you see only the 10,000 things. I also like the way in which this ends. Mindful of the ancient beginnings, we hold the thread of the Tao. So you have to kind of step back and look at the root. I think I like the term root, or kind of the return. It keeps coming back to that. And each of these verses, in Tao Te Ching, presents that in such a beautiful way. Making that distinction between 10,000 things and the Tao. So I really love this verse. Thank you.
Thank you, Srikan. Okay, so this one also remind me about the Buddhism teaching. Well, even I try to separate this one from Buddhism translation, but I do see the relation between Buddhism here about Mahayana Buddhism, talking about the so-called the middle way, okay, between being and the nothingness. Okay, so here, even being and the nothingness is indistinguishable. You don't know it's nothingness or being. Okay, so I think that's remind me about the Mahayana Buddhism talking about the middle way. Kwang and Mandarin, please. Kwang. You are muted, Kwang.
Okay, so I will read 6 lines of Professor Most Roberts' translation first. Through this one, all living forms coin forth, helter skelter, how else to name it, only to go round home again to their unbodied state, form before form, guises of the unbodied. So here, I think that this stanza is a very strong manifestation of the teaching of the simultaneous appearance of timelessness and time. Okay, because the 6 lines that I just read, and I agree with Jason, it is strongly evocative of Parmenides, because Parmenides said that only being is, and all the phenomena are just hallucinations or illusion. Illusion not in the sense that they don't exist to us epistemologically precisely, as Aman mentioned, but that they don't have a fundamental substance, like being that is always present and that is everlasting. And here precisely, only to go round home again to the unbodied state, I would say that it is incredible to what extent it sound like Buddhism. Of course, I live in 2025. Okay, when I read stuff like that, I cannot stop myself to make the association with shunyata, the formlessness that would bring the multiple forms. But if there is a text, a fundamental text, a classical text of Taoism that is perfectly equivalent to that, is precisely only to go round home again to the unbodied state, form before form. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Madeline, please.
Yes, thanks. So I had a couple of comments. Quite some time ago, okay, so what Aman said about these things being irreducible, the first three lines, I too had thought about, gee, they usually like to list things in fives, and the senses would be included in that. Here, it makes more sense to list them as three. I think that aroma, odor, can be folded into the listening one because it's an immersive experience. It's something coming from the environment. The taste could be folded into the tangible one, what is reached but cannot be held. And so I think there was some level of economizing here in order to put those in. And now they have the three irreducible things. The line, we call it a state of statelessness, an image of nothingness. That's a direct presentation of logical contradictions. That's just right there in front of us. A long time ago, in meetup time, Kwan had recommended the Moss Roberts translation, and Roberts has some wonderful commentaries after each one. His point in this commentary on this one was that the three cannot be further investigated, so we mix them into one. The character for one is a horizontal stroke, and it can also have connotations, at least visually, of the horizon. Then the next line makes a lot more sense. Its upper part is not bright, its lower part is not dim. So here is the one, this one stroke, which could be, but can also be a naming in a way that does divide. So here's this one stroke. It divides things, but its upper part is not bright, its lower part is not dim. And I loved, we cannot see its head when we confront it, nor can we see its back when we follow it. Well, yeah, because we're right in the middle of it. We're right in the middle of it all the time. So thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and take host privileges here to jump in and say thank you, Madeline. And yes, and the omission of taste and smell. I've thought about this quite a bit. Yes, you could equate them just straight across as an economizing, but there's something unique about those two senses versus sight, sound, and touch. And that is they bypass the frontal lobe. When you smell something, that scent immediately speaks to the limbic system. It immediately engages long-term memory. And like any of our mammal ancestors, if you look at their behaviors, the first thing they do when they encounter something is to smell it, to get an immediate gut check sort of response. What the Taoists would probably look at and say, oh, that is spontaneous wu wei in regards to that thing. Same thing with taste, because taste is really just a extension of scent. You have your basic senses of taste, but then everything that's complex is attached to that olfactory, and it too bypasses frontal lobe cognition. It goes right to spontaneous natural reaction, so that when you smell or taste something, you have literally a gut check reaction. Personally, I can't smell cooked barley without having almost a reflex gag reaction. And that, I know, attaches to growing up out on a reservation where my father insisted on just cooked barley as a sort of meal staple. I can't change that. It's hardwired into the long-term memory of my body. And as soon as I smell it, that's my reaction. We all have this, both in negative and positive. You smell baked bread or baking cookies or steaming buns, and you immediately attach that to something from the past. So I think that immediacy and spontaneity have something to do with the omissions here as well. Sorry.
Thank you, Adam. Okay. My idea is why we missing another senses. I think the smelling and the taste are the lower level. Okay. So we usually see vision. I think in Plato, we'll see vision as a spatial because you need the light. Okay. The sun. And hearing will be the next, and the touching, and then smell and taste. That's considered as low level animals. I think that's just my idea. So let's see what Darren wants to say. Darren, please.
Hey everyone. It's really great to see you again, Jason. So regarding this passage, I'm just gonna, I guess, suggest a hypothesis of how we could understand it. So the last two, I'm just gonna start at the end and then I'll comment on the stuff before it. So in Cantonese, it's Nang Ji Gu Qi Si Wei Do Ge. So it's called so I'm using the Derek Lim translation. It's called so he translates gay as axiom. I guess he translates law. That could work. And he says, so the Derek Lim translation goes, one can know the ancient beginning. It is called the Tao axiom. So I wonder if, so I too really like this chapter. I think it's beautiful and poetic, and I think it captures, the heart of maybe what the Tao is, whatever it is. But I also wonder if it's meant to be seen as in opposition with Confucianism. And the experts here can correct me if I'm wrong. So because he says like one can know the ancient beginning, and then it's called the Tao axiom. So it's like you can know it as a kind of law or principle or a thread that maybe is already present. And I say this because all the stuff in the rest of the chapter about formlessness, it cannot be seen, cannot be heard. I mean, the Tao of Confucius was very much built on things that you can see and hear, because it's all built into the ritual, right? And so this is presenting a different view of the Tao. Like in a way, I personally think if you go deep enough, I personally think they like are touching Taoism and Confucianism are touching on pretty similar things. But I think, there's different levels you can read it, right? So in a certain understanding of Confucianism, which is very much built around the way of the ancient rituals, and that ancient way, the very concrete kind of, it's much more concrete. This is presenting a different way of looking at the Tao, which is this formless thing, and it's much more, maybe of a more Buddhist idea or spiritual idea. I don't know what the exact word, the best word is, but it's presenting something that's much more enigmatic rather than, again, according to one reading, Confucianism, much more built on, which is built very much on the things that are seen and the things you do properly. So yeah, so then when he says at the end, one can know the ancient beginning, it is called the Tao axiom. He's suggesting like you can know the ancient beginning, it's because it's always here. It's always, the Tao is always with us. You don't have to go back to all those books and texts and all those ritual texts that Confucius does. Again, according to one understanding of the essence of Confucianism. So that's it. Thank you.
No, Darren, before you jump off, I have to ask, are you suggesting this is Lao Tzu's a priori argument against Confucianism?
Yeah, it seems like it's presenting a different image of what the Tao is, because they both use this word Tao, right? Whereas in Confucianism, it seems much again, on one understand Confucianism, it's very much built on the rituals. So that's the Tao. You follow those ancient rituals, and that all that stuff you can see and hear, right? And which is precisely what this chapter is saying you can't do with the Tao. So it's presenting a different image of what it is. I think when you go deep enough at Confucianism, I feel like it's pretty much it is touching on something very similar to Taoism. But I think a very the common understanding of Confucianism often doesn't go that deep. So I'm just saying that at that sort of more common level of understanding, it is presenting a contrast. And also maybe how Confucianism was actually practiced too at the time, right? Because I think many Confucius, the Yu hot people, are the Ruists were very, they Confucius aside, many of them were very obsessed with ritual and and like following all the ancient rituals very quite strictly.
All right, thank you, Darren. Okay, so and I had a few comments based on what I think it's a big subject. It was difficult to discuss between Confucianism and the Taoism. But here I want to mention their similarity. Okay, uh, holding the Tao of ancient to harness the being of the day. Okay, use the Tao of ancient to harness the day. To know the ancient beginning is to know the law of the Tao. So both praise the ancient, okay, both believe the ancient is great. That's their similarity. They are different, okay. I think in Confucius, why is visible, followable, tangible look like the Confucian Tao? Because Confucian or Confucius see Tao when they talk about Tao in analects. The Tao is the way, okay, is the means. But in Taoism, especially in Laozi's Dao De Jing, the Tao is the end. It's not the way to the end. It's not the means to the end. It's the end itself. So basics, okay, Confucius Tao is lowercase Tao, and Taoist Tao is uppercase Tao. That's my understanding in the high level thing. But of course, that's a perennial subject. If you want to compare Confucian Tao and Taoist Tao, that's that's endless. Okay, so thank you, Darren.
Thanks.
Mandarin and Kwang, please.
Yes, I am looking at note 2, and I'm looking at to flatten, to remove. And that makes me think of perspective, that as beings with binocular vision, most of us, we have a perspective as if you were looking at, how a Renaissance drawing does something, or how a wireframe projection does something. When we remove that perspective and it appears flattened, then it's just some things are larger, some things are smaller. You don't really have any sense of the roundness of objects. And so in a way, it's like either the farthest plane, which would be the sky, as far as we can see, or it could be the closest thing, something that's so close up that our vision is obscured by it. And that would be the iota. And then that middle one, the thinly spread threads, that's also a flattening. To have something kind of teased apart like that. I'm thinking of a gauze weave or a muslin that can be just sort of pulled apart a bit. Those first two seem to be about, they all do relate. It's very interesting, but I can't articulate it any better. Thanks.
Thank you, Mandarin. Okay. Kwang, please.
I think that I was muted. Okay, I repeat myself. Okay, so here, I think that I want to say that in relation with the fact that both Confucianism and Taoism respect the past, once again, I want to say that what is common to Taoism and Confucianism is the control legacy of the Qi royal house of the Zhou dynasty. And the first Confucian classic is the Yi Ching. Okay, so in the Confucianism, I would say that the goal is not the sixth line. The goal is the fifth line, is a run. And when is a run, precisely, for a Confucianist, the goal is to be a run and to contribute to protect the empire and the society. For the Taoist, it's more the truth. You have to go to the ultimate epistemological stage, which is the sixth line, the top line. And there, as Jason said, is the Tao with the capital D. And the Tao with the small d is at line 5. And there you have precisely the formlessness, contrary to the forms. And I also want to mention that Tao Chi, and that has been quite appropriately translated as the law of Tao. Chi is the same word that is used for historical records, for example. Okay, Shu Ji. Okay, the records of the grand historian is the same Chi. So here, in Confucianism, that Qi can be understood as records in time. And here, the Tao Qi is cosmic record. Okay, it's not it's more than the construction of human beings wanting to protect the empire and the society. It is something that is deeper or more universal. Once again, the small d for Tao and the big D for Tao of the Taoism. And within the Chinese translation, not translation, but tradition, it is something that is acknowledged that Taoism is deeper than Confucianism, but that it is not practical for the protection of the empire. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Let me ask you a question. Okay. I think your comment about Ji related to Shi Ji is interesting. So, how do you think if I translate as record of the Tao or account of Tao, how do you think about this? Or you prefer as a law of Tao? That's
If
my
I
question.
have to choose only one word, I prefer your solution. Law of Tao is more majestic. If
Okay,
I want
thank
to,
you.
if I want to choose record, I would add a word, the cosmic record of Tao.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Yeah, because I remember when Sima Qian write the Ji, he talk about 救天人之变. He want to know the rule of the change of the history. So,
Yeah.
In Sima Qian's idea, it's not just pure record. It's through the record you know the pattern. Okay, that's my understanding. Yeah, anyway,
Absolutely.
thank you. We have Nick and Darren. Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. Well, before I say anything, I just want to echo the earlier sentiment. Welcome back, Jason, and thank you for showing us the example of living resiliently. Thank you.
Yeah, I said, let me correct. I don't use the word resilient. Okay. I use the word flexible. Anyway, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to follow up on the exchange on the last keyword. This is G. So two thoughts. First is a footnote on the authorship of this work, because according to the linguistic etymology, this word did not appear until until 150 years when Laozi was dead. So it appeared in the war kingdom time. Laozi by then was 150 years dead. So that offers some support to the theory that the Dao De Jing, this piece of work, was not just composed by Laozi himself, maybe some of his disciples later. But since this last sentence is so important, so we can speculate the philosophical content of it. And I heard some earlier reference to Greek. So here I actually have a question on how we think about this. So on the surface, this passage argue, in the same fashion that the Greek thought argues that, especially Platonic Parmenidean thoughts, that what's real is not what's actual. Our senses cheat us. The real world is actually the idols. It's not what we see. It's not what we hear. It's not what we touch. So that okay. So that seems to be consistent. It's just argued in a Chinese way. But then the next question is, how then do we get access to Tao? And the Greeks argue that we could use our mental capacity, we could theorize, we could, there is a notion of nous, we could grasp, we could contemplate, we could reflect the deeper, what is the transcendent, the superficiality. But here, so my question is, was Laozi arguing for something similar, that something transcends the what we see, what we hear, what we touch? Or is he saying, don't bother, just know you're not able to access, that's enough, that's all you need to know. Just know you cannot know is good enough to carry on your daily life today. So which way is he saying?
Thank you, Nick. That's a great question. But my answer, okay, that's just my answer. My answer is don't bother. Okay, that's it. So don't spend too much time on that because everything is not very clear. There's make no sense to make it clear. That's my understanding. But of course, people may have a different idea. Darren, please.
Well, actually, what I wanted to say is related to Nick's comment. So how do we access the Tao? One way to maybe put the question. And so I think so this comes back to the translation of the very last character here. It's gay in Cantonese, but I think it's Ji in Mandarin.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay. So you translated as sorry, Derek Lim translates axiom and you translate as law. I think that's the best way to translate it. So I do understand another way to translate it might be like as a historical record because it or because that it is used that way. But I think that would be problematic given what we've seen in this chapter, because it's supposed to be, it's called enigmatic and formless and so on. So it's not something it's like the whole chapter is pushing us towards this direction of something abstract. It's not something that you could just write down and memorize or whatever. So I think it is proper to translate as law and or axiom or something more abstract that way. And so, but when you see this, I think it's saying, so the last two lines, just gonna read my translation. One can know the ancient beginning. It is called the Tao axiom. So it's saying precisely that the way to know it is not, again, I guess I'm coming back to my own interpretation of this. the way to know the Tao is not to go back to the records in the sense of the rituals and what to do, and but it's much more abstract. It's whatever is being depicted in this chapter. So which is why I was saying earlier that like what I meant by, so they do both respect the ancients, but I think in a very different way. Like what is ancient for, maybe what is ancient being suggested in this chapter is the thing that is like is always accessible to us, even if we don't have those records, because it is a much more abstract thing. So it is ancient in that it's always there, but we don't need like, we don't have to go back to the books to figure out, you know, what the right ritual is and what the right organization of society is and what the right hierarchy is and all that stuff that Confucius is concerned with. So anyway, so that's just my way. That's yeah. I initially I just wanted to say talk about that last character and why I think it's better to translate as law or axiom. But you know, it did sort of fit into what Nick was saying too. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Darren. Back to Nick's question about the understanding. I kind of feel my answer is don't bother to understand too much, because the word 恍惚, okay, I translate as vagueness. Okay, so that means don't be so clear on that. There's no clear. And here use the word one. Okay, so here I will argue Taoism is not unity or put everything combined as one, because you talk about the Chinese word use 混. Okay, that's not a good word in Confucianism. Okay, basically he's talking about mix. Okay, because okay, we mix them into one. Mix, it means blurry. You know, since we cannot make it very clear, so we just overall just say, oh, they are the same. So not like they are united as one. So that's my understanding based on the text we have. Okay. Paul, please.
So along these really fascinating lines, Jason, if we're called upon, which I think we see in other parts of the Tao, to live according to the Tao, how are we going to live according to something that we shouldn't bother grasping? I know it's a tricky question, but I just wanted to hear how you talk about it.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, that's how I live my life. Okay, without a lot of things you try to understand, but to a certain point you just let go. Okay, so I know a lot of people may disagree, but that's how I feel it. And especially, I hope that we have the opportunity to introduce Zhuangzi, the other Taoism writer. So I think his idea is very clear. He don't push too much to understand everything. Okay, so Kwang, please.
Okay, I would say that here maybe there's something from the Taoist tradition that can help, because in Chinese thinking, it's much more between formlessness and forms rather than between substance and phenomena. Even if substance is quite close to formlessness and phenomena is quite close to forms. So in Chinese, there is a series of sentence starting with the Wu Ji, You Ji, Tai Ji. Okay, so Wu Ji is formlessness precisely, and You Ji is word for word. You Ji means having a form, or it's precisely the one. And after that, you have Tai Ji, the timeless form of beauty, goodness, and truth, and etc. What I mean here is that when you are in a form, like in the form of a human being, for example, it is easier for you to grasp what is form, okay? Because what has been translated by Professor Most Robert at Hunter Scanter or Huntun, okay, that chaos, that undifferentiation, okay, the the Wu Ji, precisely, the formlessness. Well, that formlessness is not that, it's not the natural existential apprehension of things for someone having a form, like a human being, and that would grasp a phenomenal reality through senses perception. The technical answer to that is that you have to go deep into meditation. And the existential answer to that, I don't have it for anyone because it is a personal answer. And but still, I stick to the technical answer. You should try real meditation. I stop here.
Thank you, Quan. Okay, so I think probably we should move on for chapter 15.
Okay.
That Quan, please. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I start reading the stanza 15. Okay, stanza 15, translation by Professor Mose Roberts. The ancient master workers of the way had vision to perceive the subtlest forms. Too deep they were to recognize, and since they can't be recognized, one can but strain to picture them, wary as if wading a winter river, watchful as if threatened from all sides, stately and restrained like a guest, smooth and even like dissolving ice, impassive even as the spacious sea, unfettered like a restless windstorm, rough and solid like an unwrought bowl, compact and dense like something unrefined, wide and open stretching like a veil. If solidly, they kept calm and stay pure. If secure, they move with care and stay alive. But who can do so now? Those who embrace the way do not grow too great and thus survive and overcome defeat.
Thank you, Quan. Any other version? Anyone want to read?
I can read the.
Oh,
Oh, should I
okay.
go? Okay.
Derek, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Go ahead.
If no one goes, I can read the Derek Lim translation, which is
Great.
kind of strange, but anyway.
Hold
So
on. Derek is not strange. It's
it's
great.
not okay. I don't know. It's the chapter that's strange. Maybe it's a chapter that's
Oh,
strange.
okay. Okay, you think the chapter is strange. Okay, that's good to discuss.
No, I'm just trying to like understand it. Yeah. Anyway, here it is. The Tao masters of antiquity, subtle wonders through mystery, depths that cannot be discerned, because one cannot discern them. Therefore, one is forced to describe the appearance, hesitant like crossing a wintry river, cautious like fearing foreign neighbors, solemn like a guest, loose like ice about to melt, genuine like plain wood, open like a valley, opaque like muddy water, who can be muddled yet desist, in stillness gradually become clear, who can be serene yet persist, in motion gradually come alive. One who holds this Tao does not wish to be overfilled, because one is not overfilled. Therefore, one can persevere and not create anew.
Thank you, Darren. Okay. Go ahead.
Chapter 15, Never Fullness. In antiquity, good learned men, Taoists, were minutely subtle and mysteriously thorough. Their depths were unknown. Since they were unknowable, their appearance can only be described as follows. They appeared carefree as they dared to wade a winter stream. but they were vigilant, as if they feared the surrounding neighbors. They appeared in proper manners, like formal visitors, but they were relaxed, like melting ice. They appeared genuine, like uncarved blocks, but they were vast and open, like basins. They appeared opaque, like muddy water. Who can stay still in muddy water and let them slowly become clear? Who can continue in peace and gradually grow? Those who persevere this Tao, those who preserve this Tao, never desire their fullness. Only those who never fully can remain concealed and make things anew.
Thank you, Amam. Fully, okay. I think double L. Okay, so I like personally, I like this one a lot. Okay, I just want to hear from Darren why it's strange. I don't see it's strange. I think it. I learned a lot from this lesson. Okay, so I separate this one as a three part. The first part talking about just like the the word they use 士, but here in general, I translate 士 as in a learned man, okay, or scholar. But in Confucius Analect, this word appear many times. But here, I think in Dao De Jing probably only appear once. So here is definitely is a learned man, but it doesn't mean they learn Confucianism. They learn Taoism, okay, as a role model. And then as tradition, Taoism was always say it's very difficult to describe properly what's going on and how does he do. But he want to describe the appearance. Here is the translation I make a little bit. I believe it's probably different than all other translation or interpretation, because I make this one as three pairs. Okay, so you can see the first pair. If you read the Chinese words called yu yu, okay, yu, the first word, okay, means one kind of like mammoth, huge animal, which huge elephant. Okay, so the second word yu, this word, okay, means kind of like a big cat is vigilant. Okay, so these two animals are very different. So you talk about your attitude should be like this kind of animal, okay, like elephant. When the mammoth, you can walk through the winter stream, okay. Basically, you carefree, you don't care. But it looks like you are carefree, but actually you always vigilant. Okay, so I think that's very important. In the Taoism, you look like you are carefree, but actually you are aware of what's going on. Second part, it appear in the proper manner, like a formal guest. The Chinese word 客, okay, like a guest. So that's the words is means you pay a formal visit. So when you visit, kind of like you visit your boss or visit your superior, so you have to proper dress. Look like you are serious, but you are not so serious inside because you like the marine ice, kind of loose inside, only appear serious. The third pair talking about is genuine, okay, like uncarved wood block. That's an important word called wu, okay, uncarved, unpolished. Even it's unpolished, but your mind is open, can receive many things like basin. Okay, so I think that's the three pair. Okay, you look like you are carefree, but you are careful. Okay, you appear serious, proper dress, but inside you are not so serious. You kind of relax. You appear like uneducated. Let's put it this way, but actually you are ready to receive many things. I think that's the three things, three pairs. Okay, this paragraph is talking about. Last part talking about also important. Okay, they appear opaque, 奇混, like muddy water. Okay, so same word. Okay, 混 that means mixed together, mixture, or opaque, not very clear. But how can you make unclear, a muddy water clear? You have to stay calm, still. Then gradually you will become clear. I think that's this chapter is talking about. And the last part talking about only not willing to be full, okay, or be fully, okay, never fully. Then you can preserve this kind of attitude. So if you always try to push to the limit to be full, then you have no room to improve. The last part is a little bit strange, I have to agree, because the word 不, okay, so we don't know, can remain concealed and make things anew. Some translation will say not make things anew because there's a word too negative. But since we don't know, we should have this word or not. But so the ending could be a little bit unclear. So I have to admit on this part. But the rest, I think, is pretty good lesson, at least to me. Yeah, thank you, Aman.
Thank you, Jason. I can't help but smile when I read this chapter because it kind of reminds me of hold on one sec. There they go.
Okay, we done. Go ahead.
To reiterate, I really enjoy this chapter because before we were talking about the Tao, now we're talking about Taoist. So what are they like? What are they supposed to do? They appear carefree as they dare to wade a winter stream. Wading a winter stream is a precarious endeavor, to put it mildly. You have to be vigilant. You have to be attentive. You can't exactly be carefree as you wade a winter stream, but you appear carefree as you do this. They appear proper in their manner, like a formal visitor. Yeah, so full disclosure, I absolutely always wear jacket and tie when I am teaching any class. That is something I picked up from, I think it was Jack Benny, might have been George Burns, but always wear a jacket and tie when you present to a group to show them respect. I'm one of the very few professors at my college who does this, but it's because I'm as relaxed as I would be crossing melting ice. Truly, I am paying attention to the details. However, I want my students to succeed. And so that is my genuine goal. I want a nasty note from my provost accusing me of grade tampering because everyone got an A. So how do I do that? Well, I try to be upfront. I try to be honest. I try and tell them what I want. And then I try and treat them as equally and fairly as I would anyone in a classroom. All of these things come into consideration when I read through this passage because it really, I didn't read this before I began teaching, but as I have taught, all of these lessons really feel like they fall in place. Crossing a winter stream, fearing the eyes of my surrounding neighbors, not wanting that nasty letter from my provost or to ever beyond rate my professor. Appear like I'm a formal guest, but as relaxed as melting ice. Genuine as an uncarved block, but open as vast as a basin. I can take 80% of my class failing when I know from experience it's not me, it's them. All of this is what is a Taoist like, and it's not an easy thing. Any Taoist is not a proselytizer because they'll tell you this is difficult. It's a challenge. And to tie this back to what we talked to at the very beginning about, Jason, your current circumstance, I think I said to you, it's easy to be a monk on the mountain. It's really hard to be a monk on the subway. Having these ideas or ideals is very easy when they are not challenged, when there isn't turbulence in your life to make you really, everybody has a philosophy until they're in a foxhole. That's what refines a philosophy. When there's disruption, when there's chaos, when these ideals really meet the road, can you be patient enough for your muddied waters to still, to actually look and say, okay, yeah, I'm still following this. It was rocky there, but I'm still able to follow this. Can you continue to move in peace, gradually growing? We don't immediately have, aha, Satori epiphany realizations in Taoism. It ever grows, slowly, subtly, patiently. And only those who can fully remain concealed can make things anew, as long as you are able to have this as part of your being. Can you take the slings and arrows and still sally forth despite those things with that sort of equitable, gentle, patient behavior of a Taoist? I'll stop there.
Thank you, Aman. Okay, Kwok, please.
Yes, I am absolutely delighted by this stanza because I would say that after stanza 14, describing the way, stanza 15, precisely on the first line, is presenting what is the subject, right? The ancient master workers of the way. And my understanding is that it's a description of a very complex process of meditation, precisely because at the second line, the ancient master workers of the way had vision to perceive the subless force. Too deep they were to recognize, and since they can't be recognized, one can't but strain to picture them. And after that, they describe everything that is in the process of the meditational journey, if you want. Okay, watchful, stately and restrained, smooth and even, impassive, unfettered, solid, compact and dense, wide and open stretching. If solely they kept calm and stay pure. So here is put in a situation precisely. If secure, they move with care and stay alive. But who can do so now? Those who embrace the way do not grow too great and thus survive and overcome defeat. Let's say that those two last lines are maybe for a more practical purpose, but I would say that it's a very successful poem for describing the meditational journey. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwok. Madeline, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Kwan. Would you put the text back up on the screen, please?
Okay.
All right. So that first part says that the final line says, since they were unknowable, their appearance can only be described as follows. So it's as if in the next part, it's like a description of de. And it's like a description of de, of what the appearances of it are, as if de were the thing in itself. And these are the appearances of de. De. I don't think I have the pronunciation right. So almost as if it were a parable of the blind man and the elephant, saying like it's like this, it's like that, it's like this, it's like this other thing. Then there's the lower part. They appeared opaque, like muddy water. I had been I've been going through some major life transitions in the past 7 or 8 months. Jason, thank you for the difference between resilience and flexibility. I've had to continuously realize that, yeah. So I've been using an online random number generator, and then using that to look up an I Ching hexagram. And it has been really quite startling. You'd think that the online random number generators had only a limited selection, because I keep getting similar ones over and over, or one that's paired with the one from the previous day. This one made me, the bottom part of this made me think of number 59, which is Hun. It has to do with dispersal and flooding. And one of the interpretations that I read was there is a thing confusedly formed. So in other words, there's a thing confusedly formed if you let everything settle after the flooding, and let the muddy waters gradually become clear, then the thing that is confusedly forming will form. And it's a complement to hexagram 55, which is one I keep getting, and then that will be paired with something else. So I liked this. It really fit right in with what I had just been reading. Thanks.
Thank you, Mandarin. Okay, so any other comment about on this chapter?
Darren has a
Oh.
question in the chat as to why
Yeah.
"boo" is in brackets.
Okay, so there's a 2 version. Okay, so let me show this one. Okay, because I'm not very good or pay much attention, because I see different version. I forget which one is which. 故能避而成心. Okay, then we have to translate can remain concealed and make things anew. But some version, instead of they use 不. That means the meaning is opposite. Okay, that means they remain concealed and never make anew. So if you take the never make anew, they take as a conservative view, right? That means you like a cup, you never let it full. Okay, so you will never anew, always in this way. But if you take another interpretation without 不, that means it conceal and it can grow new. So that's totally opposite meaning, but I think both work, depends on how you want to look at. So I will open for your own interpretation and which one you like. Okay, so that's the reason for that, for the parentheses, book. And sometimes you may see different translation because the Chinese original have different version. Unfortunately, that's a negative negation. So the meaning is opposite. That's the reason.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up to that?
Please.
So in the rest of this text, I mean the Dao De Jing in general, is there are there other references to making things or not making things anew that could help us figure out whether the Booth is there, should be there, or should not be there? Like, are there other references to? Because I do sort of want to figure this out,
Yeah,
like how we should understand, because they're like
I
two
also
opposite
thought,
understandings.
yeah, I thought about this one, but I don't remember, and I probably have no conclusion. Okay, Kwang or Amang or other people may have your own opinion, but to me, I don't have any conclusion. Okay. And I don't have any idea which one would be better or what's the meaning. And I do not see the 81 chapters are all consistent, because they probably a collection of 81 similar argument on that. So I kind of read each one as it's a standalone. That's my own reading. So, and that's the beautiful of reading this text, because it's not so consistent. So you have a room for you to interpret and to teach your own lesson. That's that's the reason. Yeah.
We have room to make things anew.
Yeah, wow. Or you can have room to not make a new. So
Or not
really
make
up
things
to you.
anew. Okay.
Depend on you want to make a new or not. So anyway, Kwang and the medicine, please, Kwang.
Yeah, I maybe have a hypothesis to full or never full, okay? Because pu ying can be translated as no fullness, never full. But if we remove the pu, you only have ying, meaning full or fullness. So I would make the hypothesis that there's maybe a play here, because in meditation, what has to be full is precisely the presence of pure awareness. That would be fullness. But what would be never full is precisely that the mind is always open. Okay, because if we read the description of the poem, at the end, the poem says that it is impassive, unfettered, rough and solid, compact and dense, and wide, open, stretching like a veil. So here we have a very obvious metaphor for the mind that is precisely open to receive new things or new perspective. So there, maybe the title of Pu Ying, never full, can be understood in that way. But if the Pu is not there, we only have Ying, that would be full. It would be in the other sense, meaning full of pure awareness. So maybe
Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry.
No, the Bu is not about here. The argument is not here on this one. Did you see the text?
Yes.
不诚
Okay.
心, not about 不赢. Okay, so I think you probably
Yes.
okay.
Yes, absolutely. But I'm speaking only of the title, Pu Ying.
Okay.
Okay, so in Pu Ying, if we keep the Pu, so we have Pu Ying, meaning no fullness or never full, right? So that would be in the meaning of the mind that is never full, that is always open like a veil, okay? Like in the description at the end of the poem. But if the Pu is not there, it would be full or fullness. That would be the fullness of the presence of pure awareness. So that is my hypothesis, and only on the title.
Okay, thank you. Medern, please.
Yeah, I'm looking at this section that you have up right now. They appeared carefree as they dared to wade a winter stream. And I'm seeing water imagery. So there's the winter stream, which is rushing cold water in its liquid form. We have melting ice. So we're talking about water in its solid form that is transforming. And then they are vast and open like basins which seems to refer to that very ancient text about the Yin Valley. And congratulations once again, Jason and Amon, for getting through that one. I'm wondering, so these are looking like water images. So I'm looking for images that are more like solidity, the contrast with them. So surrounding neighbors are not only people, but also might be buildings of some kind, might be among the 10,000 things. Proper manners like formal visitors, again, these are solid entities. And the uncarved wood block, it seems formless, but again, it's a solid. So we have a contrast of liquid and solids, each one in a somewhat different form. I don't know if those would be labeled yin and yang, or if that's just how this one is arranged, but it's a lovely poetry.
Yeah, thank you, Mother. Okay, so that's great observation. Yes, and the water scene is very important in Taoism. Unlike Indian Bhagavad Gita, fire is important thing. So if this text appear in Indian, probably have a lot of fire scene on that. Anyway, Nick, please.
Yeah, thanks. I want to follow up on this discussion on the last line, but I have a smaller separate question on the way you separate the Chinese text into three parts. Are there particular reason, or are they just randomly? My particular question is the last part, the first line of the last part. That line seems to belong to the middle part.
Yeah. Okay. That's the okay. Yeah, that's the great question. Okay. My previous version, I put this one together. Okay. Because I see this one is 7 lessons. I think most of translation, interpretation all see this one as the 7 things, right? Be what like wait in the winter stream, vigilant. Okay, so you spy the feel the surrounding neighbor, like manner like a formal visitor, like melting ice, like uncarved wood blocks, like open basin, and like muddy water. 7 things. My previous translation, I make it as 7 lessons to learn. But when I carefully examine, because whenever 3 lessons, 6 lessons, 8 lessons, I always ask myself, why 7, right? And is there any more or something redundant? So that's the logic behind that. So when I carefully read this one, I find out that actually that's the 3 pair, okay? 3 pair, because you can see 2 and 2 are opposite, just like Madeline talking about. One has a water scene, one has a solid scene. And the last one, the idea is they use the word 混, okay? 混 means muddy, right? That's a solid, which is the sand. And water, they mix together. So I think in this way, it makes perfect sense, right? They put the 6 or 3 pairs, and the 7th is a mixture, okay, of both. So that's the logic behind, and then you may agree, you may disagree, but I think that work for the way I translate. So I hope you got my point, Nick.
Yeah, okay, thanks. So on the more substantial point is on the translation of the last line.
Okay.
And I think that's the essence of this passage and could be the essence of the whole work, whole book. The translation I've seen are directly opposite to the meaning you have here.
Yeah.
So let me just cite one example. Martin Heidegger who was a German philosopher. In the later career, he kind of got into the Tao Te Ching, right? And as a matter of fact, this second and third line, that actually makes a couplet, and it's actually this couplet was hanging in Heidegger's office study.
Hold on. You mean which line? These two lines?
No, the second and third line of last part.
Oh, this one? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good.
So
Yeah,
this actually makes a nice couplet, and the hung in the study of Martin Heidegger because it articulates a Chinese notion of the relationship between becoming and being. And obviously, Heidegger's big emphasis was on disclosure. That's one way he tried to access the being. And then obviously, his interpretation or translation of this passage is exactly the opposite of your last line. And some of the traditional Chinese interpretation of this is also on saying that disclosure unconcealed, and then you can renew. I just want to register a point. There's a large school of thought out there which has exactly the opposite meaning of the last line, and more important, the whole interpretation of the Tao.
Okay, thank you. Okay, but I think that I recognize the different way, but I think that I forget which version because the word "bu" appear here. That's why it has the opposite interpretation. So I don't. I think you can choose which one you prefer. Madeline, please.
Thanks, Nick. I'm going to fill in my standard disclaimer here for I don't really know that much about Heidegger, just a bit. In the, let's see, so in the Tao Te Ching, one of the things that is really lovely about it is that it makes very few references to the built environment. And when it does, it's very specific. And it's really, all of its references, as I believe Aman has pointed out in the past, are to very ordinary things that anyone might have ready to hand, like a cup, or you might be familiar with a mountain or a valley basin, things everyone can recognize. There are very few references to things like, there's one that has to do with chariots, I think, but that's really about the hole in the middle of the wheel where the axle goes in. And Heidegger, too, tried to do things in very ordinary language. It ended up being torturously convoluted. Whether I don't read German, but I hear it's like Kant. It's just as bad in German as it is in English. But nonetheless, he was trying to use very ordinary terms that people could understand rather than the elaborate filigree of language that goes with formal logic philosophy. Also, I read a very interesting book called Wish I Was Here. I'll put the reference in the chat. An anti-memoir by M. John Harrison. He's a science fiction writer, very dark, very, very good. This book, as I was reading along, I suddenly realized that he had read Heidegger and was doing in this collection of snippets of a memoir, what it is that Heidegger recommends that we all move on to, which is speaking in imagery and symbolism, because those are the things that resonate on different levels. So although it's not a book about metaphysics, the way that this is, or the parts that I like of this are, nonetheless, it has an incredible resonance and some very beautiful passages. I read it during an especially tough time. Thought, why don't I read something more uplifting? But it turned out to be in its own odd way. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Mark, please.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. It's good to see you again. I thought Nick's comments were really interesting, and I had some comments about that I wanted to make. But I would like to hear Eamon and Quan comment on Nick's comments first before I say anything. If either one of them wants to do that, that's it. Thanks.
Amon and Quan, you want to comment on this about no?
I'll defer to Quan first.
No? You're muted.
Okay. So first, I would like to ask Nick to repeat his main idea in one sentence. Maybe he's
Nick,
not. Are you here? Are you here, Nick?
he probably
Yeah, I'm here.
Nick.
Sorry. So the main idea is that I'm against the Jason and Amon's translation of the last line because it conveys a very different philosophical interpretation of Tao.
Okay. But if I read the last line of my translation, those who embrace the way do not grow too great and thus survive and overcome defeat. Is it that last line that you're speaking of?
Well, the last line is remain concealed and make things anew on the screen.
Okay. Okay. But to be frank, I like that translation by Jason and Amon because
What?
I interpret stands. I interpret. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I just want to say that's nothing about I like or dislike because I just follow the original text. So even I dislike or I hate it, I have to translate it away. So too bad.
Oh,
so.
no. But I agree with you, Jason. I'm saying that I like your translation.
Yeah,
in the sense
but that's
because
put this way. Let's put this way. Okay, I would be happy. Well, if you say you dislike this idea, that's nothing about me. Okay, that's the text.
No.
But somebody say no. Hold on. If somebody say I dislike this translation, then I will be very serious on that. I want to know why you dislike my translation, right? So that's my role here. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when I say that I like the translation, it can be interesting too, because why do I like that translation? So because I understand the stanza 14 as the description of the way, and stanza 15 as the being of a meditator. And if I take that understanding that stanza 15 is the being of a meditator, that the last line is about making things new, is precisely the mind of the meditator. Okay, I know that we try not to quote Buddhism here, but I think that it's not Buddhism when I say that the mind that is in meditation, that is a mind that is not under the influence of the automatic thinking, okay, of the repetition of the automatic thinking, of the stuff that have been used to condition a certain mind. So, and here again, I want to come back to the title of stanza 15, Pu Ying. Once again, Pu Ying is not full, okay, a no fullness. It's not full of the conditionings coming from the past. So, so that the last line finish with the idea to make things new or to see things under a new perspective. I like that translation because I think that it is perfectly in line with the main idea of stanza 15. I stop here.
Thank you, Kwang. Okay. Darren, please.
I'll say briefly about our translation, and then Darren, I'll let you have a go. That here, Taoism and Buddhism seem to have dovetailed very closely, because the idea of to not make things anew versus to create things anew almost is a distinction without a difference. It's the question of, are the cherry blossoms of this spring different than the cherry blossoms of last spring? The answer is both yes and no. And so I do like this version because it cuts against the grain of so many other translations. However, I do view it as not incommensurate with the sentiment that is being expressed.
Okay. So if I can jump in, because I actually, the reason I raised my hand just turns out to be related to this current discussion too. What was I gonna say? So the first thing I guess is, I am curious, like, what the attitude towards like newness or innovation might be at this time, or with these people or these thinkers. I mean, just apart from this issue of translation here, I would be interested if anyone can shed light on that, like what this attitude towards innovation is, because Confucius is obviously against it, because Confucius just wants to go back to the past. Like everything's about recreating the past, and it's all been downhill from there. So he wants to go back. So it's not innovation. But I wonder, like, what the Taoists, what attitude they might have. So I'll just leave that on the table for now. I have a further comment, which is just regarding this. So the translations the texts I have all have the bu in it, or it's bu, and I think it's Mandarin. So I have been trying to understand what it could mean with the bu. So I'm just gonna read in Cantonese because I can't read them. It says, so, and it would be but sun sing. So the last word is sing. So we've been focusing on the sun, the new, but what about the last word? And so I think if you understand, so sing could mean like to make something like complete. But I think one way to understand it, which would actually, like, with the bu, would make it completely consistent with the entire chapter here, is to understand sing, the last character, as referring to something like a form or a shape. So it's only someone who is never so someone who is never full can remain sort of concealed and not become a form or shape. And I think this makes sense because this whole chapter has been talking about, these people who are mysterious, they're unknowable, they're like they combine these mysterious qualities, and then it talks about them being like muddy water. And so I think there is a consistency if we bring the very last character also into the fore as having significance. So the sing as meaning, as I said, something like a form or a shape. So it's only by remaining empty or not full, that one, yeah, can be concealed and not take on a shape or a form or something. And then the very last thing I'll say is that, sorry to always come back to Confucianism, I actually reread the Analects because everyone in this group had always been saying that, you need to understand the Analects to understand this text. I was like, okay, so over the Christmas break, I actually reread the Analects very carefully. So what was I going to say though? I forgot. Oh, yeah, regarding remaining concealed and make and not take on like a form or a shape, or not become a form or shape. I think this, if you read it in this spirit, I think it is also a sort of, I don't know if it's like consciously to, and I wouldn't say attack, but conscious contrast with Confucianism, but it's like just making an alliteration anyway. But but it is like, I feel like it does seem a little bit implicit, because it's saying, because Confucianism, it was all about like going into the world and becoming useful in government. So it's not, it's the opposite of the concealing thing that's being mentioned here. And it is very much, I think Confucius did want people through the rituals to take on a certain like concrete form or shape in their appearance. Whereas this chapter, like the whole chapter, and also the very last line, in my interpretation of it, is suggesting something opposite: to not take on a form or shape and to remain concealed. And of course, even in the Analects, right, the end of the Analects, there were these like battles between the confrontations between the Taoists and the Confucianists, whereas the Taoists were the people who are just like off in the woods somewhere doing their own thing, and then Confucius comes by them, and they're like, and they have their clash. So anyway, I'm just saying, like, if we bring the very last character into the picture, maybe we can sort of like see all these things in a sort of more consistent light, just in both internally but also externally, vis-a-vis Confucianism. I'm done. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Darren. I just want to remind everyone on the chapter 14, keep the vagueness. Okay, so if you are not sure, okay, just leave this on the table. Okay, but I have my own interpretation on this one, because I don't see that that's that important. Okay, because two way to read it. Okay, even with bu, okay, which is negation, with or without, basics talk about the same thing. Okay, it sounds strange, but let me make my point. First, okay, those who are never fully can remain concealed. I think this line has no argument. 能避, he can remain concealed. The point is and make anew. So you conceal, then you have the new. If you take no, right? 不, don't make anew. That means no need to make anew. That means you are good enough. You don't have to make a new thing. Okay, so two meanings sounds opposite, but both consistent, because the first one is conceal. You can have the potential to make new. Or you can say with bu, which is negation, no need to make a new, which means you're already good enough. I think both work, okay, in this way. That's why I don't see it's a big deal. But that's just my point. But, go ahead. We have Paul and Mark, and we probably have to close on the 15th, and I will see you in 1 or 2 months.
I'll
Paul,
do
please.
very quickly so Mark can get his word in. But it doesn't need to be long, because we've been singing a lot of Jason's praises tonight, but I want to sing a different version of it, which is your tolerance of ambiguity. I feel like you are amazing in this regard. And the Tao is teaching us this. Even in this passage, it's using vague and unknowable. And you're just like, yeah. I mean, I just want to appreciate, especially with the Western must be solved mindset, how amazing you are in that regard. So thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Mark, please. Mark, are you there? Oh, is Mark gone?
Well, if Mark doesn't chime in, I'm going to take advantage of my last couple of minutes. Two things. One, I want to thank you, Jason. He dropped off and had to come back. I want to thank you because doing this in your circumstance really is being the monk in the subway. It is hard. Mark, I'm going to give you the final word in here in just a minute. And two, I wanted to absolutely thank everyone who showed up tonight. We have missed you. We enjoy seeing you. We haven't loved having to cancel on you. We will get back to this in a regular fashion. It's hard to go through turbulent change. And the Tao doesn't deny that. It's hard, it's difficult, it's unpleasant, it's unwelcome, but it's also inevitable and it's also only temporary. These things have turned throughout human history towards continuous change that, for most people, most times, is better. That's not absolute, but as long as you are able to weather the slings and arrows, you can usually come out in a better position even than you started in. Sometimes trauma is the only thing that gets us to change unworkable patterns. I've had to been fired from multiple jobs before I got the one I actually wanted. And I hope your eviction from your residence in Southern California might actually make you a neighbor. That would be lovely. I'd love to be able to share a cup of tea with you on a regular basis. Mark, I'll give you the final word and then I've got to go because I got class tomorrow. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Amon. Yeah, I'd like to meet you in person too, Jason, if you ever come up to Seattle. So, boy, I have a lot to say, so I probably won't say most of it. So, thanks for the comments that everybody made, Nick and Quan particularly. So, about what liking the translation or not liking it. So, to me, there's two different issues here. In my mind, the way I interpret it, there's two separate things. There's what did the author or authors intend when they wrote it, and what does it mean to me? And those aren't necessarily the same thing. There's a lot of things in the Tao Te Ching that feel meaningful and that I agree with, and there's some things that I don't agree with or I don't empathize with. But it's important to me to know that my views are not the views of whoever wrote this 2,400 years ago. So the first thing I want to understand is what did the author intend, and then separately figure out what I think about that. So from that standpoint, I can't comment on the translation because my Chinese is abysmal. But I do feel like I have some understanding of ancient Chinese philosophy, culture, and particularly how it contrasts with the Indo-European tradition coming out of the Vedas, developing into the Vestas or the Avestas, and then how that developed into post-exilic Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Manichaeism, all those ideas. And looking even in the Vedas to a little extent, but even more in the Avestas, you have an association of these ideas: masculine, fire, truth, higher, openness, light. And I see a similar association in the Tao Te Ching, except it's in the reverse. In what in Western philosophy is often called Manichaeism, although that's a little bit hyperbolic. But in the moral dualist tradition that comes out of the Avestas and manifests itself most obviously in the modern world in Christianity, liberalism, Marxism, and you have this idea of these opposing forces, and truth is always venerated, and falsity, or you could call it vagueness, indistinctness, is put down. And from my understanding, so I've read the Tao Te Ching many times in English translation, probably like 20, 30 times. So looking at the overall context, just from my understanding of the overall context of the ideas, I think I agree with Jason and Amon's translation. Now, for somebody who's steeped in the moral dualism of the European tradition, it doesn't make any sense. It's all backwards. It's emphasizing the wrong thing. But to me, it seems very Chinese. In fact, that last quote reminds me of a famous quote from Deng Xiaoping, which is bide your time and hide your capabilities. So there's a real emphasis on the value of concealment and reticence and closeness. So just based on my understanding of ancient philosophy, I tend to be biased towards Eamon and Jason's translation. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark, and thank you, everyone. And I'm going to cancel for next few weeks meetup, and then so far I put in I think it's April 8th. I believe that's a good day to start. Okay, so but you can sign up on April 8th, and we will continue. And then I will use this period of time to rethink everything. And I believe when I do the translation, could have some difference. I don't know. You can tell me. You will tell. You will tell. Okay. Anyway, thank you, and then see you next time. Bye.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason.